The grand plaza roared with a crowd, the festive sound of a brass band abruptly cut short by a piercing scream, then a cacophony of panicked shouts. A sea of faces, initially jubilant, contorted with fear. Union Jacks and festive banners drooped like wilted flowers. The polished cobblestones, moments before pristine, now reflected a chaotic scene. King Theodore, regal in his ceremonial military attire, his face a mask of cold fury, stood on a raised red-carpeted dais. His speech about national unity brutally interrupted. A small, brightly colored ball, red, white, and blue, bounced forlornly near the edge of the dais, a forgotten toy. Then a child's desperate, heart-wrenching cry cut through the noise. "Mummy!" Nearby, his figure, a pillar of crimson and gold against the swirling panic, Sergeant Thomas Ashton, imposing in his Royal Guard uniform, his face trained to stoicism but his eyes intensely alert, stood ramrod straight at his post. His gaze, however, flicked sharply, instinctively, to the source of the cry. A little girl, Anna, 6 years old, hair and pigtails, lost and terrified, about to be swallowed by a sudden, dangerous surge of the panicking crowd. King Theodore's voice, amplified by microphone, cut through the din with icy authority. "Control this chaos. Clear the square. Now. Use any means necessary." The command was absolute, chilling in its disregard. Other royal guards began to move with drilled precision, forming a formidable line, preparing to push the crowd back forcefully. Anna, small and bewildered, was directly in their path. Ashton's gloved hands tightened imperceptibly on his ceremonial rifle. Any means necessary. He'd heard those words before, in a place far removed from this gilded pageantry. The sound of relentless gunfire, distant explosions, and crackling radio chatter filled his memory. 10 years ago, a younger Ashton, face streaked with grime and sweat, eyes hollowed by exhaustion, cradled a dying fellow soldier, Private Miller, barely a man. The interior of the Humvee was cramped, smelling of blood and cordite. Miller coughed, a wet, ragged sound, blood flecking his lips. "Hang on, Miller, medevac's coming, just hang on," Ashton had urged, his voice hoarse. Miller, words catching in his throat, whispered weakly, They said clear the village, any means. A kid, Captain, I saw a kid, right before." Miller's eyes went vacant, his last breath a shallow sigh. Ashton had let out a guttural roar of frustration and grief, slamming a fist against the Humvee's metal side. The order from high up, detached, had led to civilian casualties, an image of a small, bewildered face in the dust, a memory seared into his soul with burning shame. The memory faded, but the familiar chill remained, settling deep in Ashton's bones. His jaw clenched. The other guards, younger, less seasoned, some with an almost zealous glint in their eyes, were already advancing, a wall of crimson and black, impersonal, efficient, their boots striking the cobblestones in unison. Anna stumbled, her small legs tangled by the rush. She fell hard, her small hands scraping against the rough stones. Tears streamed down her face, leaving clean streaks on her dusty cheeks. She looked up, her eyes wide with a primal terror, directly at the advancing line of guards. The crowd reacted with a new wave of fear and anger. "Don't push! There are children here! My God, can't you see?" a woman shouted, her voice tight with fear. "They're going to trample us! Look at them! Like bloody robots!" a man yelled, his voice rough with anger. A teenager, phone held high, live streaming, his face alight with a mixture of fear and excitement, exclaimed to his phone camera, "Whoa, this is insane! The King's Guards are going full riot squad! Royal command, people! This is going viral!" A father in the crowd pulled his own young son closer, shielding him, muttering, "Stay close to me, don't look, this isn't how it's supposed to be." His wife looked on, hand clasped over her mouth, her eyes wide. They wouldn't. Surely they wouldn't hurt a child, not in plain sight," she whispered. "Wouldn't they? Orders are orders, love, especially his orders. Always have been," a cynical voice piped up nearby, laced with bitterness. Whispers rippled through the more stationary parts of the crowd. Disgraceful. That poor child. And the king, not an ounce of compassion in his voice, an elderly woman said to her companion, her voice trembling. Compassion? It's about security, old dear. National security. Can't have chaos at a royal event. Bad for the image, scoffed another man, adjusting his tie. The air crackled with palpable tension. Ashton remained rooted, but inside a storm raged. His gaze was fixed on Anna. The vibrant red of his tunic felt suddenly suffocating. The weight of the bearskin hat felt immense. He saw not just Anna, but echoes of other innocent faces. The girl in the bombed village, his own younger sister, Sarah, lost years ago. His training screamed, obey, maintain formation. His heart screamed louder, protect, shield. This is wrong. The sun glinted off the polished steel bayonets of the advancing guards. They were 10 paces from Anna. 5. Her small, choked sobs were almost inaudible. Ashton's breath caught. He saw the scene play out. A brief, brutal efficiency. A small, insignificant casualty. Insignificant to them, not to him. His gaze locked on Anna. The world narrowed. The advancing guards seemed like automatons. He heard the sharp inhale of a woman near him, a soft gasp of pure dread. A nearby press cameraman zoomed in. The crimson of his uniform felt alien. He could smell the faint, acrid scent of ozone from broadcast equipment, mixed with expensive perfume. His peripheral vision caught Captain Rexford, his direct superior, watching him. A slight frown, a minute gesture with his chin. "Get in line, Sergeant." A silent warning. Ashton's heart hammered. Any means necessary. The phrase coiled in his gut. King Theodore's voice, impatient and like cracking ice, amplified and harsh, commanded, "Sergeant Ashton, your post. Join the line. Clear them out." Every head on the dais turned to look at Ashton. Their collective expectation pressed down on him. He remembered his swearing-in ceremony. His father, a former guardsman, had said, his voice gruff with emotion, "Duty, Thomas. It's a heavy coat, but wear it with honor. But never let the uniform strip away the man inside. Remember that, son." Ashton's eyes flicked to the king. He saw not a benevolent ruler, but a man detached, willing to sacrifice innocence for an image of control. The sounds around him distorted. The only clear sound was Anna's soft, hopeless whimpering. He felt the stitching of his gloves, the cold metal of the rifle. Each heartbeat thundered. What is duty? The question burned. Is it blind obedience or upholding a higher moral code? He saw the polished black boots of his comrades. One was about to step dangerously close to Anna. 30 years ago, a small, scruffy Thomas, 10 years old, sporting a fresh black eye, stood defiantly before his father. He'd stood up to a bully tormenting a stray dog. His father, dabbing at the bruise, said quietly, "Sometimes, son, standing for what's right costs you. A black eye, a bit of trouble, but not standing for it, that costs you more. It costs you a piece of yourself. Never forget that." The memory solidified something within Ashton. The advancing guard nearest Anna raised a heavy booted foot. Ashton moved. It was a deliberate, powerful shift. One precise, resonant step forward, then another, breaking formation. Gasps rippled through the crowd, louder this time, sharp and incredulous. Even the advancing guards faltered. "Look, he's moving! He's going for the girl!" someone exclaimed. "Is he mad? The king will have his head for this," another voice, disbelieving, cried out. "He's actually doing it! He's really doing it!" came an awed whisper. Phones were thrust higher. The live streamer was almost vibrating. "You guys seeing this? Unbelievable! Total hero move or career suicide. You decide. #RoyalRebel." Ignoring the king's furious stare, Ashton walked directly towards Anna. His pace was measured, purposeful. He reached her just as the closest guard's boot was descending. Ashton's arm shot out, placing his hand flat on the young corporal's chest, halting his advance. "Stand down, Corporal. Hold your position," Ashton said, his voice low, resonant, calm, but carrying an authority that transcended rank. The corporal, face pale, stared, confusion warring with obedience, his raised foot hovering. Ashton then knelt. The majestic bearskin hat tipped as he lowered himself to the child's level on the grimy cobblestones. The act itself was a spectacle. He gently turned Anna over, her wide, tear-filled eyes fixed on his face. He looked at her, his own eyes conveying safety. "You're all right now. I've got you. It's okay," he said softly, his voice for her alone. He then scooped her up, small and trembling, into his arms. She clung to him, her tiny hands gripping his uniform. He stood, Anna secure, and turned, not towards the furious king, but towards the edge of the crowd, scanning for her parents. King Theodore was apoplectic, his face a mask of thunderous rage. "Sergeant Ashton, I gave you an order! Arrest that man! Arrest him, I say!" he roared, his voice cracking. He turned to his personal aide, hissing, "Who is that man? I want his name. I want him court-martialed by sundown. Make an example of him. This will not be tolerated." The aide scribbled frantically. The queen placed a delicate, restraining hand on the king's arm, which he shook off violently. "Do you hear me? Detain him, or are you all cowards and traitors to the crown?" he yelled at the remaining guards on the dais. They hesitated, looking from the incandescent king to Ashton, who now stood as a defiant protector. Ashton felt the king's wrath, but wasn't swayed. He remembered his last conversation with his father, just before the old man passed. Frail in the hospital bed, his father had gripped Ashton's hand. "The uniform, it's a symbol, Thomas, meant to represent the best of us. Courage, honor, self-sacrifice. Protecting those who can't protect themselves. Don't ever let it become just cloth and buttons, son. Make it mean something. Every day you wear it, make it mean something." Ashton was making the uniform mean something. A woman, Anna's mother, her face a mask of desperate relief, burst from the crowd. "Anna! Oh, my baby! Anna!" she cried, rushing towards Ashton, who met her halfway. He gently handed Anna over. The mother clutched her child, sobbing uncontrollably, murmuring thanks that Ashton barely registered. The plaza was strangely silent, stunned, watchful. Two stone-faced senior guards, expressions unreadable, approached Ashton. Captain Rexford was with them, his face grim. "Sergeant Thomas Ashton, you are relieved of duty. You will come with us," one of the senior guards said, his voice formal, devoid of emotion. Ashton nodded slowly. He didn't resist. He cast one last look at Anna, safe in her mother's embrace. The little girl, over her mother's shoulder, gave him a small, shy wave. Ashton turned and walked with the senior guards and Captain Rexford towards a side exit. His back was straight, his head held high. The crowd parted, a human corridor forming. Some faces showed disapproval, others quiet admiration. A low murmur followed him. An elderly guardsman by a side gate caught Ashton's eye and gave a barely perceptible nod, a flicker of understanding and deep unspoken respect. The heavy, ornate gates closed behind him with a somber clang. The plaza slowly began to return to order, but the air was different, charged. Anna's mother, still holding her daughter tight, looked one last time in the direction Ashton was taken and whispered, "Thank you," to the empty space.